Evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I am Dr. Naufida. So today we are starting our webinar series for NEET MDS orientation for crash batch this year. So today we have Dr. Vani with us for oral radiology, and she's taking cellography today. So let me introduce our faculty, Dr. Vani, to all of you. You are all new for us. So Dr. Vani is, she is an MDS graduate from RV Tandal College, Bangalore, and she was awarded with IAOMR for scoring the highest marks in oral medicine and radiology in academic year 2011 and 12. And she had completed her course in biomedical research by ICMR and NIE. And she has been our faculty for biochemistry, oral medicine, and oral radiology at Focus Dentistry since 2006. And it's great to have you, Dr. Vani, with us today. And yes, dear students, we are delighted to have someone like Dr. Vani to have, to guide us in these subjects, and hope you will be listening to her soon. So let me hand over the session to Dr. Vani. Shall I?
Thank you, Dr. Naufida. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Focus. So today is the first free webinar for you all. Am I audible? I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So today I have chosen the topic of xylography because I felt it's very important in the point of NEET aspect, as well as, I felt it is quite interesting because you would get to see a lot of radiographic pictures or views. Okay, so let's begin the session. Yeah. So the topic is xylography. So what is, from the term xylography, what you can initially or at the instant, what you can make out, like it has something to deal with salivary glands, right? So it's a imaging modality which is used to, view the salivary glands or the ductal system and the architecture of the salivary gland. Okay, so it involves the injection of a radiographic contrast medium, which is retrograde instilled into the salivary duct, following which routine radiographic projections are made so that we can well visualize the ductal architecture of the salivary gland. Okay, so most commonly xylography is performed for parotid and the submandibular salivary glands. So it mainly involves 3 phases. We'll go in short. You just need to understand an overview of it. So first phase is called as a pre-operative phase. Okay, so in this phase, mainly the scout radiographs are taken. That means before we start the procedure, the patient would have come with some complaint. That is why we are going for the xylographic procedure, right? So first we should have an overview, like we should assess what exactly the patient's complaint is or where is the problem. So just to get an initial scout image or, a basic structural awareness, we take radiographs. So can anyone put it in the chat box, like, what all radiographs are the ones that can, that we use for routinely, we use for the parotid or the submandibular region? Any idea? Okay, just imagine you people have got a patient with a submandibular xylodenitis, okay, because of xylolith. Okay, so yes, we take a mandibular occlusal radiograph, but here when we do a xylographic procedure, we need a little more broader coverage of the area of both parotid and the submandibular salivary gland, right? So because of that, we usually, the most common radiographs that we use are either panoramic radiography, as SCOUT, or you can use a lateral oblique radiograph, okay, or a PA view. Okay, posterior view. Usually to view the parotid area, we make the patient to blow their cheeks so that you get an air contrast to view the, any stones or something present. Okay, so those are the radiographs that we usually use to take a SCOUT image. So those are an OPG view or a panoramic view or lateral oblique radiograph, or we can go for a AP view with cheek blown out in case of parotid salivary gland visualization. So when you take a normal radiograph, you won't be able to see the salivary gland or their ductal system because they won't be radio opaque in the normal radiographic image. Okay, so that is a pre-operative phase. So if we have already taken something and assessed where exactly the position of the stone or something, then there is no need for it. Otherwise, as a preparatory phase, we usually take a SCOUT radiograph and record it. Now, next is the filling phase, during which the radiographic contrast is injected in a retrograde direction. That means from the ductal opening, we are injecting it into the glandular structure. And last one is the emptying phase. Okay, so in the filling phase, see, the steps in filling phase mainly include, in the parotid as well as the submandibular salivary gland, we locate their ductal orifices, okay? And they are dilated with an instrument and they are cannulated. After that, the radiographic contrast is injected slowly into the ductal system, okay? So during which, once the radiographic contrast agent is instilled into the ductal system, then we have to take filling phase radiographs, which are usually, as I have mentioned, the same views only. Usually we take 2 radiographs at right angles to each other so that we get a 3-dimensional visualization, not like exact visualization, but a 3-dimensional idea of the glandular structure. So we usually take 2 radiographs which are at right angles to each other. So that is how the filling phase is carried out. During the emptying phase, before moving on to the solutions, next, once the filling phase radiographs are taken, then we take, we evaluate how the radiographic contrast agent is excreted or secreted out from the salivary gland. So that is what is the emptying phase. Okay, so during the emptying phase also, at about 1 minute or 5 minutes, as well as after 1 hour, we usually take radiographs to see whether the radiographic contrast agent was completely removed from the glandular ductal system. Because retention of the the contrast agent within the gland is actually an indication of a reduced function of the gland. So by xylographic technique, during the evaluation of the emptying phase, we also get to know the a crude idea about the glandular function also. Okay, that is why xylography has a major use in case of Sjogren syndrome and all, wherein the glandular function itself is affected. Okay, so not only just to make a note of any obstruction in the flow of saliva within the ductal system, not like just like that, but also a crude assessment of the glandular function also is available, or we can make out a crude assessment by the emptying phase radiographs in xylography. So we usually use 2 types of contrast agents, basically oil-based and aqueous-based. So oil-based example lipoidol and all, while aqueous-based is like iohexanol and all. Okay, so this oil and aqueous-based radiographic contrast agents for xylography are mostly iodine-based. Okay, so what are the advantages of an oil-based contrast agent? Because oil-based means they are not readily soluble in water, and because of that, what happens, they are not easily dissolved in the saliva. So obviously saliva would be present within the ductal system, right? So they don't readily diffuse into the saliva, and because of that, what happens, we get a good contrast visualization of the glandular structure. So they are densely radio opaque. Okay, we get a good contrast when we use oil-based xylographic contrast agent. But they have very high viscosity, and also because of that, what happens, they're only slowly excreted from the gland. So we get time to take the radiographs during the filling phase. We get time to evaluate how the gland is getting filled or the ductal system is getting filled. Okay, but oil-based radiographic contrast agent has certain disadvantages, mainly, since because of high viscosity, the pressure while injecting them, we have to apply a lot of pressure, and because of that the patient would be having severe pain while injecting. And if at all they get extravasated due to the pressure and all, due to the glandular damage, if they just get extravasated into the surrounding tissues of the salivary gland, then they will remain there itself because they are not water soluble. So because of that, that will create an allergic, granulomatous or foreign body reaction. So which actually is not a good sign after sonography. Okay, so that is one of the complications of using an oil-based contrast agent. Even though they give a good contrast radiographic visualization, still these are a few problems that we encounter when we use an oil-based contrast medium. But aqueous based, then it's a reverse. So they're readily soluble in water. So the chances of extravasation also is very rare. But if at all they get extravasated, since they are water soluble, they are easily excreted from the body without causing any retention or any other foreign body reactions. And low viscous in nature. So because of that, they are easily introduced without causing much pain for the patient. And they're easily taken up as well as removed rapidly from the gland. So these are actually supposed to be the advantages of an aqueous based contrast agent. But what would be the disadvantage? Since they are easily taken up and easily excreted from the glandular structure, it's very the time that we get to evaluate is quite less. And also they are as compared to the oil based contrast agent, they are less radio opaque. Okay, so very difficult to visualize fine, thin ducts and all those things. Okay, so that is how the oil based and the aqueous based radiographic contrast agents work. Okay, so what are the indications? Now we have seen how the stylographic technique is done. Now we will look into what are the indications for going for a stylographic technique. Can anyone tell me what all indications that you all may be aware of? From whatever I have explained, you would have got a basic idea, like, what all would be the indications. Yes, silolith. Yes, that is the most common indication that we go for stylographic technique. Tumors, it is, but see, nowadays it's well advanced, right? Why do you go for a stylographic technique in tumors? We usually go for a CT. If we suspect any bony involvement, or immediately we'll go for an MRI, because salivary glands are soft tissue contrast organs. Because of that, tissues, they are a soft tissue contrast, and hence we would go for a MRI rather than a stylography, because MRI you can well visualize the extension of the tumor, what all areas it is involving, and all those things. So even though the tumor would have caused some glandular alterations also, that is well visualized in MRI. So no need for, mostly it is not, done routinely. Stylography is not done routinely for the tumors of the salivary glands. Mainly the calculi, then presence of any other obstruction like strictures, when there is contractions or adhesions in the ductal structure. And yes, we would also get a mild outline of the functional capacity of the gland. That is why it has a role in stylography, has a role in Sjogren syndrome, and where the function of the gland also is altered. Okay, so the indications would be to determine the presence as well as the position of ductal obstruction, to assess the extent of ductal and glandular destruction because of this obstruction. Obviously, the obstruction would have been present for a period of time, and that would have already caused some damage to the glandular ductal system as well as the glandular acini. So that also can be visualized, or that also can be evaluated by stylography. And we would also get, as I said, a crude assessment of the function of the gland in cases of dry mouth. So what are the contraindications for stylography? The first and foremost is, we are using iodine containing compounds. Okay, so because of that, it poses a lot of, threat like allergic tendencies. So in patients with allergic tendencies to iodine, you should avoid xylographic technique. And not only that, since the same kind of iodine compounds are used for the functional assessment of the thyroid glands and all, so those people who are having those problems, and they're supposed to go and, immediately if they're going to take some thyroid function test and all, it's better to avoid doing a xylography prior to it. Okay. And another important thing is we are instilling the radiographic contrast agent in a retrograde direction. That is, from the ductal orifice, we are pushing it back into the gland. So if at all some cylolith or some obstruction is there, just close to the ductal end, then that due to the pressure of application of the contrast agent, that would be pushed into the gland. So that is another complication that you can expect post xylography. And since xylographic technique can lead to a lot of inflammation happening to the gland due to, because whatever may be the procedure, you are actually injecting a new material or a foreign material into the body, right? So that would obviously create some inflammatory changes. So if the patient is having a very acute or active infection with pus discharge and all, xylography is supposed to cause an aggravation of that pathology. So in patients with acute or active infection or inflammation, we should avoid taking a xylographic technique. So because the post-operative complications of xylographic technique is maybe retention of the contrast agent. If there is a very huge cylolith, maybe the contrast agent would get retained just behind the cylolith. That can create issues or inflammation. Okay. And then post-operatively the patient can develop acute glandular infection or inflammation, because when we are instilling the contrast agent retrograde, maybe the bacteria or whatever is there would have also passed into the structure of the gland. That also can trigger another episode of infection. Okay, so those are a few post-operative complications that we should expect when we do a xylographic technique, because it is obviously an invasive procedure. It is not a non-invasive one. It is actually an invasive procedure. And recently we have a lot of advances in xylography, like you can do MR xylography, like magnetic resonance xylography, wherein magnetic resonance imaging can be clubbed along with the xylographic technique to visualize a better understanding of the ductal system of the salivary glands. Okay. And we can also use a xylographic technique, like a mild with a mild treatment modality also, because we can use a few collectors and all, wherein you can just detect the area where the the stone or the blockage is there, and you can just remove the stone along with the xylographic technique itself. So that advancement also is currently available. Okay. So now we'll move on to the xylographic appearances. For NEET point of view, the xylographic appearances is very, very important, because routinely we get questions from those sections. So first one is how a normal parotid gland appears in xylography. So this is how radiographically it appears, and this is the pictorial representation. So what is this appearance of normal parotid gland in xylography called? It appears like branches of the tree without any leaves, like, so it is called leafless tree appearance. Okay. Or also called as tree in winter appearance. So this is the normal parotid gland. You can see, like the parotid duct is slowly tapering and then branching out. Okay. And it is a little more longer as compared to the submandibular duct. And you can see a tree in winter or a leafless tree appearance. That is a normal xylographic appearance of a parotid gland. Now, the submandibular gland, almost a similar appearance only, but it is little more short. Okay. And that is why it is called as not a leafless tree, but it is called as a bush in winter appearance. So it's a little more short, and hence we say it's a bush in winter appearance. Now, a xylolith. So you can first you can see that in the pictorial representation, wherein the xylolith is present. So that area is like appear as void, because that area is not taken up by the contrast agent. And then you can also see in the image, you can see the xylolith noted, and portion of the duct proximal to the xylolith, you can see it is dilated because the saliva is pooled over there due to this blockage by the xylolith. Okay, so this appearance is mainly called as a filling defect, the main duct, and ductal dilatation proximal to the calculus. This is how a xylolith appears in the xylographic technique. Okay, so this is the appearance of a xylolith in the xylogram. Next is xylodochitis. Xylodochitis is otherwise called as ductal xyladenitis. So what is meant by xyladenitis? Xyladenitis, itis, something itis is always means an inflammation, right? So xyladenitis is the salivary adeni are getting inflamed. So there is inflammation of the adeni of the salivary gland. So here it is ductal xyladenitis. So there is an inflammation of the ductal system of the salivary gland. This can happen secondary to a xylolith or a stricture and all those things. Okay, it's not like some trigger is there for the ductal xyladenitis to occur. So that is called a xylodochitis. So you can see like alternating areas of dilatation and constriction, which is called as a sausage link appearance. This is how in xylodochitis the xylogram is seen. So appearance is sausage link appearance. Next one is xyladenitis. It is an inflammation of the salivary gland acini. Okay, so you can see this is the appearance. Okay, you can see bleps of or spots or dots of the contrast medium here and there. Okay, that is those are the areas where the inflammation is present. Okay, in those areas the contrast agent is retained due to the inflammation. Those areas are dilated, and in that areas from the ductal from within the ductal enclosure, the contrast medium had slightly got extravasated into the glandular structure also. So because of that, you can see that spots or bleps, dots or bleps. So that appearance is called as xylectasis or apple tree in blossom appearance. So that is how in xyladenitis the xylographic appearance is seen. So that blobs or bleps or dots of that xylographic contrast agent retained is called as a xylectasis. Similar appearance you can note in Sjogren syndrome, but it is little more wider, okay, or little more amount of bleps or dots you can see, little more widespread because there is a lot of glandular structural damage in Sjogren syndrome, and that appearance is called as a fruit-laden branchless tree or punctate xylectasis because it's much more you can note in the xyladenitis you can see it's a little more spread out areas, but here you can see punctate xylectasis. Okay, otherwise also called a snowstorm or cherry blossom appearance. These are the various terms given for the xylographic appearance of Sjogren syndrome. So here also mainly that the cells within the intercalated ductal systems are all little bit damaged. Because of that, the radiographic contrast agent has just extravasated into the glandular tissue. So there in those areas you can see they are retained and that will create spots or bleps. So that is the xylographic appearance in Sjogren syndrome. Here also there is inflammation, and that is why that the radiographic similarity to the xyladenitis. Okay, the underlying pathology as such, xyladenitis and Sjogren syndrome are very different entities, but the underlying pathogenesis is quite similar. Now the tumor, intrinsic tumor of the salivary gland, that means the tumor is within the salivary gland itself, okay, or the glandular structure is involved in the tumor. So benign intrinsic tumor of the salivary gland, you can see the white arrows. That area due to the pressure from the tumor is underfilled. That is why that area is not properly visualized. Okay, and also the the ductal duct which is adjacent to that tumor appears a little bit stretched, as if like the appearance is called as a ball in hand appearance. Okay, that is how the intrinsic tumor of the salivary gland appears in xylography. Okay, but as I said, this is not currently advocated because we have advanced imaging modalities like MRI, and usually the patient would be sent for MRI for better visualization of the extent and involvement of the tumor. So let's move on to the session with questions. Investigation using dye to find out the stone in the salivary gland. It's called as, yes, that is a xylography. Now, the bush in winter appearance in xylography is indicative of option A, Sjogren's syndrome, B, Mikulicz disease, option C, normal gland, and option D is none. Yes, it is option C. So which is the normal salivary gland which shows a bush in winter appearance? Submandibular salivary gland. Very good. What is the xylographic appearance of a normal parotid gland?
Leafless laden tree appearance.
Okay, thank you. So that is a tree in winter appearance, but submandibular is a bush in winter appearance. Ball in hand appearance is noted in Sjogren's syndrome, silolithiasis, Mikulicz disease, or benign salivary gland neoplasm.
Silolithiasis.
Yes, can you please mute your mic? It's better that you put it in the chat box.
Benign salivary gland.
Okay, it's a benign salivary gland neoplasm. Fine. Xylography is indicated in the diagnosis of all except. First one is option A, salivary duct obstruction. Yes, that is an indication for xylography. Strictures in the salivary duct, that also is an indication. So that also means salivary duct obstruction only. Sjogren's syndrome, we get an assessment of the, amount of damage to the salivary gland and also a crude assessment of its function. Option D, acute suppurative sialadenitis. That is not the thing, because acute suppurative means there is, a pus discharge and it is an acute condition. Sialadenitis, that is inflammation of the salivary gland. So because of that, that is a contraindication. So xylography is not indicated in the acute suppurative sialadenitis. Tree blossom appearance in xylogram is indicative of
Pleomorphic adenoma.
no. Why? Pleomorphic adenoma is a benign intrinsic tumor of the salivary gland, and because of that, it will have that ball in hand appearance. Cherry blossom appearance is noted in Sjogren's syndrome. Okay, where
Sjogren's syndrome.
I request all of you to please mute your mics. It's better that you put the answer in the chat box. Please, because this is a recorded session and this would be aired in the YouTube too. So those who would be seeing it would feel a little bit difficult. So it's better that you put it in the chat box. Okay. Advantages of aqueous-based xylographic contrast agents are all except. So the option A is it's aqueous-based, so that is water soluble. So option A is can be easily introduced due to its low viscosity. That is quite right. Then rapidly removed from the gland because it is water soluble. Then easily excreted if extravasated. That also is right. But there is no need for extra pressure while injecting an aqueous-based contrast agent. So because of that, the right answer is here is pressure needed to introduce a contrast agent, because only oil-based contrast agents would require greater pressure while introducing. Okay, but water-based, actually, due to their low viscosity, it is not quite painful while the aqueous-based contrast agents are injected. Okay, so that finishes off the session. The next webinar will be on Tuesday, July 20th. The topic would be from periodontics, that is guided tissue regeneration by Dr. Jerry Mammon. And I hope the session was useful to you all. Any questions, please? Previous question, what is the doubt? Okay, the water-based contrast agents. See, water-based contrast agents are quite easily soluble in water, and because of that, you don't need to apply a lot of pressure while injecting. So that options, it was like, which is not the true one. Okay, so here pressure needed to introduce the contrast agent. There is no need for extra pressure, or there is no pressure while injecting the contrast agent, a water-based contrast agent. So that is a wrong answer. I mean, that is a wrong option for aqueous-based xylographic contrast agent, and hence, since they have asked advantage among this except, so then option C is the right answer, because water-based contrast agents, they can be easily injected, they are easily they are easily removed from the gland, and even though if they get extravasated also, they're easily excreted from the gland. So the chances of a post-operative complication with granuloma, foreign body reaction and all are very rare with respect to water-based contrast agent. Okay, because water-based contrast agent, what is saliva? The main component of saliva is water only, no? So water-based contrast agent would easily, see, within the ductal system, saliva is already there. Okay, so because of that, it's the problem is you won't be they will get easily dissolved into the saliva or within the ductal system. Okay, someone has, which book do you suggest to study for MCQs? NEET, MDS? Yes, we would say basically you should go for Dental Pulse and Neeraj Wadhwan, because they have given previous NEET-based questions, and they have tried to cover a lot of topics, and lot number of questions are there. Even quite a number of image-based questions are available in Dental Pulse recently. The recent edition is very good, very elaborate. They have a very elaborate synopsis and all those things. So if you join, sure enough, we would give you a very good guidance on how to go about it. Okay. See, components in contrast medium, the most basic component is always iodine. Okay, rest of the component differs from one manufacturer to another. See, the rest next webinar flyer would reach you, because we would advertise in our app as well as in our Insta page and all those things. Next webinar is on July 20th, that is Tuesday, from the topic of periodontics, that is guided tissue regeneration by Dr. Jerry Mammon. He will be joining you from Seychelles. Someone has asked how many times to do pulse, ma'am. It's better how, if you increase the number of times that you do cover pulse, it's much better to you, right? So that's from person to person, I would say. Or how much ever possible for you, it's always better if you do more. See, next webinar link would be, it's not currently available. We would be doing that only on maybe Monday, Tuesday. So that would be reach you through our the Insta page and our app and all those things. Okay. Pulse is not just enough. Someone has asked is it just enough? No, never. Because, you should see, as far as NEET, trying for a NEET mainly is concerned, then you should go for doing a wide range of MCQs. Okay, it's not like just the theory and you can attempt any MCQ. No, not that way. Most of the times, the questions would be framed in such a way that you would know the two options are wrong, but you would get confused with the other two options. You won't know which one is right. So to get that, that practice, the practice of doing MCQs, you should increase the number of doing MCQs quite a lot. So there should not be a single day during your MDS preparation for your, entrance preparation time. There should not be a single day where you don't do an MCQ. Okay. So theory, you should know. That is also very important. But doing MCQ, the practice of doing it is what is needed. So if you, from standard textbook, answering the MCQs is very important. So not just, pulse is enough. See, Neeraj Wadhwan is very important. We usually say pulse and Neeraj Wadhwan, but there are a lot of other textbooks available. So since the NEET pattern is quite changed, you should go for the textbooks which have covered the NEET patterns. Recently, there is a lot of change in the NEET pattern questions. So I would say the recent updates, it would just come. So we have to just see which NEET pattern textbooks would be quite useful. But we usually focus mainly, at least Dental Pulse and Neeraj Wadhwan should be in and out. See, except Pulse and Neeraj Wadhwan, see, that depends. Like last year also, the questions asked me is directly the same question they won't ask in NEET, right? So, but the NEET, Pulse and Neeraj Wadhawan do cover those topics. So that's what I said, you should be able to differentiate, what is, what you should know, or, you should be able to differentiate among the options. So that is why I told you it's better to do a lot of MCQs and go forward. We would, when you join, we would give a correct, like a perfect picture of what all you should follow, which all textbook you should follow, and go about it. Okay. I think we are already exceeding the time limit. Okay. So thank you so much for your patient listening. I hand over to Dr. Naufira to wind up the session.
Okay, so I hope the session was really helpful for everyone. Yeah, I did see a lot of messages coming in flooding in the chat box. So I think everybody, every one of you were so participating actively in the discussion, and hopefully we can continue this enthusiasm in the future also. There are more webinars upcoming, and you can also share the webinar details to your friends, your colleagues, whomever it might be helpful. Okay. And thank you so much, Dr. Vani, for this wonderful session. It was really informative, not just for myself, to everyone, I hope, because I was reading all these messages in the chat box. I mean, they were asking a lot of doubts and everything. So yeah, it was such a wonderful session. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating today in today's session. And hope you guys will be there in the next session. See you later. Good night.
Thank you all so much.